Hi, my name is Mirhan, and today I'm going to be talking about racism that happens in sports and how can we prevent racism in future sporting events. So today we're going to be going over kind of some background information. Then we're going to go get into the social importance, the issue in the media, and examples of racism and prevention, and then a little conclusion. Obviously, today we're kind of addressing a big and important issue that not only like kind of affects athletes as a society, um, but as a whole. Like racism in sports has a long history, and even though we've progressed a lot as a society, it still occurs in everyday sports. And this is an issue, and it has social implications. And we will talk about how we can prevent it in the future. Um, yeah, it happens in many different places like soccer, basketball, very even in school sports everywhere. So yeah. So to get into some background information, racism in sports can be traced back to events like the Jesse Owens participation in the 1936 Olympics, where basically he faced a lot of racial hostility despite all of his great achievements. Um, His triumphs were on the track were a powerful statement against the racial ideologies of Nazi Germany. Um, Yet he came back to a country that treated him like a second class citizen, even though of all the great things he was doing and doing for them. And in the U.S., the segregation of sport leagues, there was something known as the Negro Leagues in baseball, which is another big example of institutional racism. These leagues were created because black players were not allowed to compete in the Major League Baseballs due to being black because of their race. It wasn't until Jackie Robinson broke that barrier in 1947 and became the first black baseball athlete. But now, in our modern times, athletes across different sports continue to encounter racism. Um, for example, in Europe, soccer players often get racial remarks told to them. An example was another big soccer player was calling one of the black soccer players on another team monkey. And there was no repercussions to that player. Nothing happened to him. Yeah, and these many incidents of this happen, but just not a lot of them are highlighted, um, because a lot of people don't care, and a lot of it happens behind closed doors. All right. The social importance. Racism in sports undermines the principles of equality and fairness that are fundamental to the spirit of competition in sports. When these athletes are targeted because of their race, it creates an environment of hostility and exclusions, which deters participation from these communities. Athletes serve are like kind of role models, especially to young fans. So racist incidents can perpetuate negative societal attitudes and normalize this type of discrimination, which impacts the younger generation's views on race inequality, and also can cause other marginalized community um, kids to kind of not want to play these sports because they see how they're going to be treated. So it is really important for these organizations to address the racism and make sure that there's a positive influence on society. And also, these athletes are severely impacted by the racial abuse. So the continuous exposure to racism can lead to their anxiety, depression, and other mental issues, and also their confidence, affecting their personal lives and professional careers, which is why there needs to be a supportive environment for athletes. Um, for the issue in media, the media plays a big, crucial role in shaping public perception of racism in sports. Big incidents such as racist chants directed at soccer players during matches and other players calling other players racial slurs um, obviously get a lot of media attention. and this type of coverage can help raise awareness about the issue and put pressure on sports organizations to take actions. Because social media platforms can serve as a double-edged sword. On one hand, yes, they can propagate and push these racist ideologies through from anonymous posts and comments, but also on the other hand, they can be powerful tools to combat this racism um, by letting athletes share their experiences and let other people know what they've been through. So public responses to racist incidents in sports can vary widely. Campaigns and movements such as BLM have been brought to greater attention to issues of racial injustice in sports, encouraging both sports organizations and fans to take a stand against racism. Getting into some examples, there are many case studies of racism in sports that shows how this issue kind of manifests and the responses it elicits. Adam Goldes, an Australian football league player, faced severe racial abuse from the fans and media, leading to his early retirement. His experience sparked a national conversation about racism in Australia and led to an increased effort to combat discrimination in sports. And in the US, Colin Kaepernick, a former NFL player, faced a lot of backlash for kneeling during the national anthem to protest police brutality and racial injustice. His actions brought attention to the systemic racism but also led to his ostracization from the NFL, which shows the challenges athletes face when taking a stand against racism. Also, in some more recent incidents with soccer players, Marcus Rashford highlighted the ongoing nature of this problem. His teammates faced racial abuse online after missing penalties in the 2020 European Championship, and these incidents show that even though we've progressed as a society, there's much work that needs to be done when it comes to racism in sports. Now, how can we help prevent this? Preventing racism in sports needs a lot of different approaches that involve education and community engagement. Firstly, education and training for all involved in sports, from athletes to the officials, are very important. Anti-racism training programs can help individuals recognize and challenge their biases, fostering a more inclusive environment. Community engagement initiatives can promote inclusivity and diversity at all levels of sport. Programs that encourage participation from marginalized communities can help break down barriers and create a more diverse, accepted sports culture. Policy changes. Sports organizations need to implement and enforce strict anti-racism policies with clear penalties and violations, which can help push away the racist behavior by players and fans. Just like an example, when that other player had no repercussions for calling another player a racial slur. Also, providing mental health support for their athletes affected by this racism is another very important thing. Support systems like counseling and peer support groups can help these athletes cope with the impacts of racial abuse. And finally, media outlets need to take responsibility for promoting positive stories and responsible reporting. Highlighting the achievements of athletes from diverse backgrounds and reporting on anti-racism initiatives can help shift the public perception and encourage a more inclusive environment. Now, in conclusion, racism in sports is a reflection of a broader societal issue, and it needs a lot of concentrated efforts to address. By focusing on the education, policy changes, and community engagement, we can work together. Future efforts should include continuous education and awareness campaigns to keep the issue to the front. Sports organizations must remain vigilant and proactive in their anti-racism efforts, ensuring that all athletes can compete in a safe and supportive environment. We all need to play our part in making sports equal and safe, and make sure that every athlete is respected and valued for their contributions, regardless of their race or background. This is my reference page, and thank you for listening.